Hey, good morning. So I tried to do this about 8 times yesterday and I couldn't get it to work. And I've already tried 2 more times today. So I'm really, you know what? This is it. This is going to be the one. And if it's not, I don't know at this point. Um, so I started this paper writing about cancel culture. Um, And then about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago, I decided to change my mind and write about something completely different. Um, there's a song that came out by the Dixie Chicks, which I know is a weird group for me to be fascinated by, but I really am. Um, it's called Gaslighter. It came out back in March, and it's basically the story of, I suppose, the relationship between Natalie Maines and her now ex-husband, the actor Adrian Pasdar. I don't really know anything that he's been in. I think he was in that show Heroes, but I don't really know. Don't really care, to be honest. Um, anyway, it's about their relationship and about how, um, at least in her telling of events, he gaslighted her. She knows that something happened and he tried to convince her and the world that she was crazy, but she didn't fall for it and she didn't allow him to hold that narrative over her. um, so this idea of gaslighting I think is really interesting, especially in today's culture where it really kind of has become this um, buzzword, and it gets used a lot about political figures. I saw an article just the other day about how Mitch McConnell was gaslighting America on the stimulus checks. I didn't read the story; I just saw the article. I have no idea what it was about. It's just this term that you see pop up a lot nowadays in reference to um, um, political figures and especially President Trump. I saw an article when I was trying to write this that said that President Trump thinks he's a master gaslighter, which may be true. I'm not going to refute that statement. I'm just going to let that sit there and you decide what you want on it. Although I'll tell you what I think later. Uh, um, but kind of to start, I guess we should probably start at the beginning and talk about, you know, where this term comes from and then what it actually is. Um, so in 1938, a gentleman named Patrick Hamilton, I believe was his last name, wrote a play called Gaslight, which then became a film in 1940, a British film, which is really hard to find, by the way. I think you can find it on Amazon, but it's like not the greatest quality. Um, then in 1944, MGM remade the film um, by George Cukor. I don't know how to say his name. Never have. Cukor, whatever. His films are great, so do with that what you will. Um, but the 1944 film starred Charles Boyer and Ingrid Bergman, most notably Casablanca. Um, she stars as this woman. Her name is Paula Alquist. She was raised by her aunt, a famous opera singer or classical singer, um, who was murdered when she was 14 years old. She goes off. I believe she's in France when the story picks back up, um, and she's training to be a singer who is, as her instructor tells her, not as good as her aunt, which is kind of a mean thing to say, but whatever. But she's fallen in love with this man who happens to be a piano player who is accompanying her. She's only known him for a few weeks, but nonetheless, she decides to marry him. They marry. He convinces her that he would like to move back to London, a place that he has never been, he says. Um, and she remembers that her aunt's house is now hers, and so they move into this house. And then begins his quest to make her feel or to believe that she's going insane. And he does all kinds of things by removing pictures from walls and hiding them, and telling her that she must have done it, by giving her a brooch and then taking it back without her knowing it so that she feels forgetful, and all these little tiny ways of manipulating her into feeling that she's just kind of losing her mind. At one point he even claims that he's looked into it and her mom had gone insane, and she died in a hospital in an insane asylum. Um, but throughout the course of the movie, you come to figure out that um, Charles Boyer's character is actually the murderer of her aunt, and he's after these precious jewels that um, Ingrid Bergman's character's aunt possessed. Um, and so the term gaslight actually comes from this part of the film where he disappears at night and he goes up into their attic and he turns the light on there. But when he turns the light on in the attic, it actually dims the the gas lights that are in that are in the house, um, and nobody else sees it, supposedly, except for Ingrid Bergman's character, which only furthers her feeling that she's going insane. And then she hears him walking around up there, which also makes her feel like she's going crazy. And then he obviously plays into that and allows her to believe it without telling her the truth. Um, and so that's kind of the background of the term gaslighting. But really, after the film, it disappears. You hardly can find anybody writing about this emotional manipulation that or this mental manipulation um, that that people do on each other until 1960s. Um, the literature on gaslighting is pretty scarce. Even now, you don't find much academic literature on gaslighting. Of course, you can find opinion pieces where people call Trump or whoever a gaslighter, but there's really very little um, academic research onto this or into this, I guess, phenomenon, if you want to call it that. Um, so after the film disappears in the 1960s, two psychologists coined the term as we know it now as this idea of this mental or emotional manipulation. Um, and their research was actually looking at um, involuntary um, admission into insane asylums. So basically, they were looking at a very literal approach to the film, where these men, husbands, convinced their wives that they were crazy and had them committed, which we know happened in history, probably still happens if we're being honest. Um, and so that's really how they were looking at it. And then in this 1960s, 1970s, there's a few psychologists, good Lord, I cannot talk. Some psychotherapists who talk about the term and look at it. Um, and then again, it disappears. In the 80s and 90s, it's not really anything that people were writing on or thinking about. It really just kind of falls off the radar. And it's not until 2007 or 2008 when this psychologist, Dr. Robin Stern, publishes her book, The Gaslight Effect, which is about how to spot somebody who's trying to gaslight you, so how to overcome being gaslit. Um, that the term kind of makes makes its comeback in popular culture, I guess. And now with 2016, since 2016, it's just this term that gets thrown around frequently. Um, but gaslighting is, like I said, it is an emotional or mental um, manipulation. Basically, it's an attempt to create a cognitive dissonance between what somebody knows is real and what somebody is being told is real. Um, but it stems from this need for approval. The gaslighter needs power, and this is a way that they can exert their power um, onto another person. And the gaslightee, if we can call it that, um, wants wants their abuser's approval for whatever reason. If it's in an intimate relationship, they want that love. They want that person to love them. If it's in a parental relationship, same thing, right? You want your parents to love you, and you're willing to accept what they have told you is bad behavior or your wrongs, um, and in order um, to keep them happy. So the thing about gaslighting is that it doesn't have to be conscious. Like, I mean, if and I saw this in several of the different articles that I was able to find. You know, the person can be doing it without even realizing they're doing it. In the film, it's a very conscious act that this guy is doing. He is trying to drive her crazy so he can get her out of the house so that he can um, get to these find these jewels without having to hide. Um, but it doesn't have to be that overt. It can be very subconscious, very small little things along the way. Um, and then in the song, I mean, there's a line, and I mean, again, this is a song retelling of um, her version of the relationship, which I don't doubt. I give her the benefit of the doubt because I like her. Um, but she talks about that she knows what he did on her boat. Now, what he did, I don't know. I have a few guesses, but I don't know. Um, and that he tried to say that she was crazy, um, but she knows she's not crazy. And I think that that's really the kind of the important part there is that the only way that gaslighting ends is when somebody's willing and able to stand up for themselves and say, you know what, this isn't this isn't reality. I know what reality is, and you're trying to trick me into believing something that's not real. Um, so as I was kind of going through this, I really looked at it from this idea of feminism. Because if feminist theory is really about, at its core, really about empowering women and restoring their voice and their ability to be heard, um, then I don't know that if there's anything worse than this idea of gaslighting, where somebody's abusively trying to take um, their voice from them. But I think you spread that out, right? And you look at it from this idea that in today's society, gender norms, or gender roles, gender norms, gender fluidity, all these things are so evolving, right? And it's not just about male or female anymore. There's really all these kind of intersections. Um, and gaslighting isn't necessarily gender specific either. I mean, a woman could gaslight a man could gaslight a woman. Two men can gaslight each other. I don't know. And so you really see how all of that and this idea of empowering and giving people their voice back um, can really become important. Um, I will tell you that reading all of this has really kind of freaked me out, to be honest, because it's really made me wonder, am I a gaslighter? Have I been gaslighting people? Or am I being gaslit by somebody? Um, I won't tell you the answers to any of those questions because I don't want to. Um, but uh, um, s- but yeah, I mean, it's this really weird, I guess, concept that subconsciously I could be, trying to alter somebody's reality without even realizing it, only to exert my own, only for for a power play right on my part, so that I feel that I have power in the world. Um, and I think, like, I mean, oh my goodness, like my mind just keeps going everywhere. I think about like even just the Me Too movement, right? There's this idea that um, there's a lot of people who would say, believe them all. Any woman who speaks up, believe them, right? That's what Democrats did when Trump was accused of them. Believe them all. But now Joe Biden has an accuser, and they're like, they've put on the brakes, and they're like, well, okay, hold on, everybody deserves it. Okay, everybody deserves a chance, right? Everybody is guilty until proven innocent. 100% agree with that. But there's this like cognitive dissonance between those two, and I've used that term like way too often in the last few days. Um, between those two uh, ideas, And which one is real? And which one do we believe? And how do you come to terms in a society where you say that you want every person believed, right? Every woman believed in these situations, and yet you constantly retell her what really happened, right? I mean, I don't know what happened between Joe Biden and Tara Reid. I don't particularly care, to be honest with you. Um, but this idea that people keep telling her, well, this is the accusation that you made then. So what are you saying now? How can you be saying this now? Like, it's just, imagine. And you, okay, seriously, I should have written some stuff down because now I'm just like, um, it, even somebody like Monica Lewinsky, right? I mean, imagine the emotional struggles that were put on both of these women, or all of these women, all these people who have accused anybody, and they are constantly being told, well, you said this, now you're saying this, and this is what's happening. Are you sure that's what happened? And it's this really like this just force pressing down on them, causing them to question what they know happened. And that is in and of itself gaslighting, and that is a cultural problem with us, right? I mean, because that's what we do as a culture. We question these women and force them to either change their story or question their story or wonder if maybe they just misinterpreted it. That's gaslighting, though, and we do that. We do that, and it's not just a man on female thing. That's a female on female thing. That's I mean, everybody does that, and it's horrible. Like, I mean, what are we doing? Anyway, I mean, we could get off on a whole rape culture conversation from there. I'll avoid that because I'm already at 17 and a half minutes, and I, that would take us hours. But yeah, I mean, like, even within that, there's this, and within the Me Too movement, there really does seem to be this attempt to gaslight, just because we're really trying to force these accusers to question themselves. And then, of course, like I said at the beginning, there's this, or there has been this big move about gaslighting ever since 2016 when Trump entered the campaign. And I think there's an argument to be made that he is trying to gaslight America. But here's the thing: gaslighting is a two-person relationship, or a two-party relationship. I shouldn't say two-person because America's a lot of people. Um, and I think that you can only be gaslit if you seek somebody's approval. So for a lot of people, Trump isn't a gaslighter. He's just a liar, right? And then you see that a lot too. He's just a liar. He lies constantly. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with that. I do, but uh, he can't gaslight me, right? And he probably can't gaslight you because you don't need his approval. You don't care. You don't care if he likes you. I don't care if he likes me. He doesn't know me, so whatever. But I also don't need his approval. So there's no way that he can gaslight me. I can look at what he says objectively, and I can go source it out because I don't trust anything that comes out of his mouth. Um, but he can gaslight his base into believing whatever it is he wants them to. And that is because they want to believe him. They need to believe him for whatever reason. Whether it is just a political motivation because they want a Republican to be in the White House or whatever. I mean, I'm not going to speak to what they need or what they want. But I think that this idea of Trump as a gaslighter, or as any politician as a gaslighter, only works if you want their approval or if you need their approval. Um, which I don't really know if it fits. Maybe it does. Maybe some people really do want these people's approval. I don't know. Um, what I do know is that uh, as we kind of start reshaping what we believe and how we believe, and the norms of our society, um, we have to be on the lookout for people who are attempting to change those norms, who are just attempting to reshape those norms in our heads. Um, I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that as we progress, as we grow, that becomes more important. So anyway, it was actually really interesting just looking at this topic. I don't know if I helped you understand gaslighting. I don't know really what my purpose here was. Um, but I think that number one, always just kind of maintain your own belief in what reality is and never let somebody shape what your reality is. And I think that that's kind of the key. And I think that that's what kind of feminism or feminist theory would tell any of us, is to keep your own voice, know what you believe, and empower yourself to overcome anybody who attempts um, to manipulate that. Um, anyway, I hope you all had a great semester. I wish that it had been different. I wish that we had been able to complete this semester in class because I hate these videos. I hate recording these videos. I like watching them. I don't like doing mine. Um, but anyway, I hope you all have a great summer, and hopefully we'll be back in the fall. But thank you all. I really appreciate everything that y'all have done, and it's great having class with y'all.